Good afternoon, Louisiana, and welcome to Bayou Bets for Monday, March the 27th. Zach Ewing and Jim Derry along with you. Lots to get to on today's show. We are, of course, brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. Visit NOLA.com/Caesars today for our latest special offer up to a $1,250 bet with a bonus bet as insurance if you should lose that first bet. Go to NOLA.com/Caesars. But as I said, Jim, a jam-packed show for today. LSU women's basketball is in the Final Four. They will learn their opponent tonight, so we'll recap that game, their victory in the Elite Eight against Miami. A men's Final Four that is as mad as you like for March Madness. And then we've also got the Pelicans going for 5 in a row tonight. All of a sudden, they got hot again. And also some NFL news with Lamar Jackson unveiling his intentions to play for another team. So lots to get to.
I guess we're thinking alike because, maybe we'll agree on a lot of stuff today, which would be unusual. We're almost twinsies. And I think we may have lost Zach live, or maybe it's me.
Am I back?
Sure. Yeah, you're back.
The system didn't like the plaid, I guess.
No, that's what I said. As soon as I said we look like twinsies, then you kind of went offline for a second.
Yeah, that's no good. That's no good.
For either one of us, probably.
Also, can't seem to get our headlines. There they are. Okay, all sorts of wacky things going on. The LSU women in the Final Four for the first time since 2008, Jim. And they did it in – I mean, look, we'll talk about it. It wasn't pretty, but it was certainly effective.
No, and the cool thing about it is I thought they played really not very well. And if you ask Kim Mulkey, I'm sure she'd say the same thing. But, they didn't play very well, and they still were able to win. So that was a really cool thing to see. Whether it will help, maybe they got that out of their system. Maybe the bright lights of Greenville finally, started catching up a little bit. I don't know, but they need to play better in the next round, especially if it, against Virginia Tech or Ohio State, whoever it's going to be. They need to play better if they're going to reach the championship game for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Look, like you said, the good news is when you don't play your best and still make it through, that's great. The men's Final Four, you have 2 5 seeds, a 4 seed, and a 9 seed. We'll talk about that too. We got some odds up for what these teams were to make the Final Four and the prices they cashed in on. Pell's looking for 5 in a row tonight in Portland, another late night game, but all of a sudden, pretty much everything back on the table for this team. And Lamar Jackson revealing this morning that back on March the 2nd, he demanded a trade from the Baltimore Ravens. Jerry's here. Jerry says he's glad the Saints didn't get Jackson or Rodgers. Some drama there. Some drama queens there.
Yeah, they were never coming here. So, but yeah, I don't want either one of those guys either. So I'm with you, Jerry.
And Pelicans, if they,
they don't need to win.
They don't need all 8. They don't need all 8. But we'll talk about that. They play Portland tonight. They have a huge game coming up tomorrow night at Golden State, and we'll talk about that too. But let's start with the team that's already accomplished a great deal, and that is the LSU women in the Final Four. They beat Miami 54-42. And as you were saying, Jim, just kind of like bully ball. I mean, like they'll throw the ball up and they don't make a lot of shots, but Angel Reese or somebody else will just go get it and they'll throw it back up on the rim, and sooner or later it falls in, and they're going to play tough defense, and they're not going to let you get the ball on offense until they make a basket.
Yeah, so how does that match up against other teams they could potentially face? We've seen that it doesn't work well against South Carolina. But don't put the cart ahead of the horse. Worry about South Carolina later. You got to look at these two teams tonight. So if you're really interested, this is a game to watch tonight. You want to watch Virginia Tech and Ohio State play. I think they play at 8 o'clock. So make sure you watch that game because you'll be able to tell. And now you'll look at the odds, and the odds makers, obviously. Now, granted, LSU and Iowa and South Carolina are already in the Final Four, so that's kind of a misleading.
Well, South Carolina's not yet.
Oh, that's right.
They will be in a couple of hours, but they play Maryland tonight and they're 15.5 point favorites.
I did put the cart ahead of the horse. I'm sorry, but Virginia Tech, I'm interested to see tonight how they play against Ohio State because obviously they're favored and should win. They're the number 1 seed. What does that mean for LSU going forward? We'll see.
Yeah, we did have something wrong last week. LSU does not play South Carolina in the semifinals if both teams get there. They wouldn't have to play the Gamecocks until a championship game. And so that's one reason I think these odds are lower for LSU than they are for Iowa. Iowa's going to have to play South Carolina. And Caitlin Clark, those who didn't see her, 40-point triple-double in the Elite Eight against Louisville last night. So she's fun to watch, and it'll be fun to see her go up against South Carolina. And I'm sure LSU fans wouldn't mind seeing her shoot Iowa into an upset and avoiding South Carolina.
Well, this is probably better talk for Thursday when we will talk about this again Thursday because no matter what, LSU is playing Friday. So we'll know their opponent by then, and we'll have probably more to discuss.
100%. Let's move on to the men. Men's Final Four is set. It's in Houston starting Saturday with the semifinals. It's crazy, Jim. I was thinking a year ago we were at the Superdome for the Final Four, and it was Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, and Villanova. Like just about as blue blood of a Final Four as you could possibly get, maybe minus Kentucky or UCLA. And instead, this year we get San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, Miami, and then the one team that you could consider kind of a blue blood in UConn.
I mean, it's what everyone who doesn't care about their bracket, if your bracket got blown up in week one and you knew you had no chance, then this is exactly what you were looking for because everybody else has got blown up too. Look, 37 people, I think they said, I saw a tweet, 37 out of 2 million. 37 people out of 2 million brackets filled out on ESPN had their Final Four correct, and I want to know what they're smoking. Because if you pick this Final Four, you obviously were smoking something or were trying to be as funny, or you pick teams out of a barrel and you got completely lucky. Because I really think that if you put 16 teams in 4 different hats, that you could probably have just as much luck picking this Final Four as any other one. So
yeah, you see the odds here that these teams cashed in on. UConn was the only one even close to a favorite. They were plus 375. They were like, you could get them in the 15 to 20 to 1 range to win the national title. San Diego State and Miami were both like 50 to 1 to win the national title. Florida Atlantic was 300 to 1, and they've already cashed 27 to 1 to win that East region. So quite a tournament already.
Beyond that, Zach, before the tournament, I think early in the season or preseason, either preseason or early in the season, Florida Atlantic was 2,500 to 1 to win the national championship. And I think they were like something like 1,000 to 1 to make the Final Four. So there was actually a bet somewhere. Someone made that bet, and someone won some money.
Yeah, there was also somebody bet them $400, a Caesars customer in Illinois, at the 4,000 to 1 to win the national title, stands to win, or I think it was 2,000 to 1, stands to win $800,000. So pretty fantastic. So San Diego State, 2-point favorite over FAU in the first semifinal. UConn 5.5 over Miami. Any early leans on these games, Jim?
I mean, I've been saying for 2 weeks now, ever since that first round, the only thing that I've gotten right, and I know most people haven't gotten a lot right, and I haven't either. So I'm not going to make it sound like, hey, I'm Nostradamus here, because I haven't been very right either. But I will say this from the beginning. My good friend Scott Molaire, how you doing, buddy? I will say this from the beginning, that after that first game and I saw UConn play, I'm like, to me, they could be the best team in the tournament. And I've thought that since, 10 days now, and I still think that. I think they're going to be really hard to beat. I know Miami has done some things against teams that they probably shouldn't beat, and, the great comeback yesterday, and, we were talking in pre-production. You're right. I think if San Diego State gets the right set of officials, they're able to play a physical game. They can make something happen. But I love San Diego State -2 in that game. I think they're going to beat up on FAU. That is not a good matchup for Florida Atlantic. I understand that they've been riding the hot train. But usually when you get to the Final Four, the cream, whatever cream's left, begins to rise. We saw it last year, and as much as you hated Kansas, they were the best team going into the Final Four. I don't think we would have even you would have agreed with that, I think. So, and I think more often than not, the best team in the Final Four wins. Not always, but more often than not. So I love UConn here. I'm not going to be betting against them, except maybe a little bit of hedge on something I told you. I had them plus 1,000 a week or so ago before they started the Sweet 16. So I may put a little hedges down. But as far as betting goes, I just, if you want to put a flyer out on San Diego State, that is, to me, is the only other team that you could bet on for the national championship.
I had a stat for you last week on Rick Barnes in Tennessee, and that came out to be right, that you don't bet on Rick Barnes in the tournament very often if you want to make money. And FAU took advantage of that. I got another stat for you, and it's the one reason that I would be worried about UConn, and that is that they are 1-5 in games decided by 6 points or fewer this year. And so that you take out, they're 28-5 in all other games, or excuse me, 28-3 in all other games. They don't get blown out. I mean, they're a very good team, but they haven't been able to pull out close games. And I actually watched their last loss. It was in the semifinals of the Big East tournament. They lost to Marquette by 2 points, and they did not execute real well in the last minute or two. So I worry, and I kind of like Miami with the points here, and I start to wonder if a Miami money line bet is not at least a possibility here. I've bet against Miami in all 4 rounds. I've gotten beat all 4 times.
So now you're going to get beat a 5th time because you've been getting beat betting against them? That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I guess if anything, I'd almost be more likely to bet the money line because UConn has had problems in close games. And you can call it luck. Ken Pom does call it luck. They're number 311 in the country in luck. But after a full season's worth of evidence, it starts to become some teams can execute down the stretch and some teams can't.
If you're thinking about doing that, and I don't think it's a good idea, but sure, if you want to, go ahead. I think you might be better off put a little something on Miami and San Diego State to win the national championship. Florida Atlantic, and play this tape back if you want. Florida Atlantic is not going to win the national championship. I know it's been a crazy year. All these crazy things are happening. Florida Atlantic is not going to win the national championship. Okay, so I would think that you'd be better served to take whatever money you're going to bet on the money line of Miami and put something on Miami and San Diego State to win the national championship. That, to me, would be a better value because I think you have a better chance of winning one of those because if Miami does what you say they're going to do, I think there's an overwhelming chance. I know it's only -2. To me, that's the best bet of the entire weekend at San Diego State -2. I think that San Diego State and Miami odds to win the national championship at plus 400 or better. I think that's what you should look at if you want to do that.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, you talk about Florida Atlantic.
Anything can happen, by the way.
A lot of these Cinderella Final Four runs throughout history, and Jerry's right, and it's been borne out this weekend. And the only way picked one of those 37 brackets, by the way, is if you were Biff Tannen and you went back and stole Gray's Sports Almanac from Marty McFly. That's your only chance. Yeah, and we have not found the little fist topper of Biff's cane, so we don't think that's the case. But look, like most of these Cinderella runs, think of them over the years. George Mason, I think at LSU, heck, they made it as an 11 seed. Wichita State, they kind of fizzle once they get to the Final Four. The only exception to that was Butler. One year they actually
Villanova.
Villanova won, and then Butler came within a half-court heave of beating UConn, I believe, in the Final Four one year. And so it can happen. That Butler team also had NBA talent. They had Gordon Hayward on that team. FAU, not sure they have that level of talent. They're a very good team, though. And I actually do kind of like their matchup against San Diego State. They move the ball real well. That's how you beat a tough defense like that. And like we talked about last week, the right reffing crew can make a big difference to San Diego State. So keep an eye on those refs and see what happens.
I just don't think that it's not Danny Hurley. What's the other Hurley that's coaching for UConn? I'm having a brain cramp.
It is Danny, isn't it?
Okay, I get it. I get the two mixed up.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Bobby coaches Arizona State.
Right.
Yeah.
So Danny Hurley, to me, and from this coaching blue blood, is a lot different. And another reason why I like San Diego State and Brian Dutcher. I mean, I think that the coaching, and I'm not taking anything away from. Look, Jim Larinaga has been here before. I get that. In Florida Atlantic, I don't even know what that coach has had a great run. But to me, coaching really matters, and you give these teams a week to prepare. And these lights aren't going to be too big for UConn or San Diego State, I don't think, for that matter. You wonder a little bit about Florida Atlantic for sure. And look, Jim Larinaga, they look like, to me, they won the national championship yesterday. It was a great comeback. But you look how teams react, and I think the team that if you watch Danny Hurley on CBS yesterday at halftime, it's like he expected to be there. And it was the only Final Four team that I got right. I mean, it's a miracle that I got any of them right probably. But I just like the way they've coached and the way they've handled business. And it's all about business this time of year. And to me, that plays a huge role in this. And that's why another reason why I like UConn here.
Yeah, so the Huskies minus 125, odds-on favorites to win
and
the
men's. And I really
men's.
like Creighton. I mean, that would have been something that two big East teams could have been in there. They got jobbed yesterday. That's a whole different story. I don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time because I know we have more things to talk about, and we're already 16 minutes in the show. But, I mean, Creighton absolutely just got jobbed with the way that they were officiating that game. And, Jay Wright said it best during the show afterwards. You could talk about whether it's a foul and it should be called, and we talk about this. But when you officiate a game, they weren't calling that. I mean, and to me, I don't think it affected the shot nearly as much as people are making it out to be. Because if you look, he didn't really get jerked until after the shot was released. So in the grand scheme of things, yes, it's a foul. So if you want to go by that, then yeah, it should be called. But I don't think it affected his shot. I really don't. I don't think he got kind of pulled until after the ball was out of his hand. So, but anyway, I just don't think you call that there. And if I'm the Creighton coach, I'm letting him know, you got to live with that. I want you to go back and watch that. You got to live with that. He probably doesn't care, but that's what I would be saying. You got to live with that.
And to Doug McDermott's credit, the Creighton coach, he was above board the whole time.
Yes,
didn't complain about it. Said, look, it is what it is. The foul was a foul because it was called, and we have to live with that. And honestly, right. I thought Creighton came back in the last 2 minutes of that game by pressing. San Diego State was not dealing well with it, and then Creighton tied up the game, and they took the press off. And I didn't understand that. You keep pressing, you might get a turnover. And have your own chance to win that game. So I didn't understand that either.
Well, coaches who haven't been in this spot either, they can easily, I mean, it shows. You can easily crack as well. It's easy. We can sit here and debate things all day long, and officials too. So anyone can. I mean, we can debate whatever we want. They're all human. And overall, I think, the only thing that bothers me about the officials so far, I think for the most part, they've done a decent job. What bothers me is the inconsistency, and you and I have talked about it. One game you'll see them, they're like playing football out there, and there's only, 7 fouls called by halftime. And in another game, it may be less physical, and there are 50 fouls called in a game. It's absurd. I mean, they have to find I know every crew is different, but you have got to find a way to be more consistent because they are anything but consistent right now, and that's got to change. I mean, there's only 3 games left, but you got to figure it out.
That was a mini rant. Jim's going to have his full rant at the end of the show.
Not on that.
No, not on that. But that was a mini. That was just a preview. So a couple of other things to get to on the show. And we want to talk about the Pelicans. They play at 9:00 tonight. Look at that, 11-point favorites on the road. Pelicans are 13-24 on the road. They had a huge win Friday night against the LA Clippers to start this road trip. You figure they can win this game tonight as 11-point favorites, and that would set up an absolutely enormous game at Golden State tomorrow. It'd be the second half of a back-to-back. Golden State's unbelievable at home. They're like 29-8 at home or something. So it's not going to be easy. But if the Pelicans could sweep this back-to-back, you look at the standings, Jim, all of a sudden they could not only make the play-in and have a good chance, they could get that 6th seed and avoid the play-in.
Yeah, I don't know how you can bet this at all because – frankly, would any of us be surprised if the Pelicans won by 30 or lose? And the answer is no to either one. No. I mean, you can't bet this. It's just non-bettable. I mean, the Blazers are pretty much tanking now. They don't care. So that definitely goes in the Pels' favor. But you're right. If they win in this game tonight like they should, that game against the Warriors is super huge. There are 2 games to me, well, 3 games really. 3 games on the schedule that are bigger than the other ones. This is the biggest one tomorrow, or is it tomorrow or Wednesday?
Tomorrow. It's a back-to-back for the Pels, so that is going to be tough.
Okay, so that's the biggest one, and then right behind it, I'd call it 1B, is playing the Clippers at home next week. Because even if you lose against the Warriors, who I think are on a trajectory to move their way on up, I think they're going to be higher than the 6th seed when they're done. They're going to move past the Clippers. Playing the Clippers next week at home is, to me, almost as big because if you can get past them too, if you can win 2 out of the next 3, between the Blazers, the Warriors, and the Nuggets. If you can find a way to win 2 out of those 3 and then come home, which I think they can do, they can get themselves in the top 6. So, and then it's going to come down to that Clippers game. And then the last one, which is number 3, obviously that season ender against the Timberwolves could mean a whole lot. We'll see what it means when we get there. But to me, that's shaping up to be really big. And the Pels historically haven't necessarily played great against Minnesota.
No, and I think you mentioned all 3 of those games could swing the tiebreaker. Here's your standings right now. And the Clippers are just above the Warriors, by the way. I think they're a game ahead of the Warriors. So they have a little bit of separation, but not much. Pels Warriors tomorrow night is for the tiebreaker. So if the Pelicans win tonight and win tomorrow, they would not only pass the Warriors in the standings, but they would have the tiebreaker on them. So you're looking at the 6th seed. We mentioned the Timberwolves to end the season. That game will decide the tiebreaker. Those teams are 1-1. They do not own the tiebreaker over the Lakers, so need to root against the Lakers. And then I'll tell you what, the team down there at 11, the Dallas Mavericks, Jim, like, what happened to Luka and the Mavericks? They could miss out completely here.
There are something like 3-8 or 3-9 when Luka and Kyrie are having play together. So I'm having brain cramps all over the place. I think I really am getting old. But
you really are.
I mean, there's no doubt. But to me, going back to what we were talking about very quickly, it doesn't even matter as much. Of course, this is going to sound the wrong way. You want to win. But tomorrow night is going to be a playoff type. To me, that is the barometer for this team. Are they for real in this winning streak or not? Because even if they don't win, if they play a really tight game against the Dubs' best, and it's a close game, and they lose by a few, but they play tight the whole way, and, to me, I'm going to learn a lot about this team tomorrow night, whether they win or lose, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
Golden State 30-8 at home, Pelicans 13-24 on the road. So if they win that game on the second half of a back-to-back, major upset, but also huge.
And when you're talking about the Warriors absolutely need it, like you said before. So this is playoff atmosphere at its best.
Right now, odds in the market for the Pelicans, plus 160 to make the playoffs. We talked on Thursday, or maybe it was last Monday. That number was like plus 375. Yeah. So they've obviously done a lot of good. They were plus 170 just to make the play-in tournament last week, and now minus 160. So they have improved their odds quite a bit.
That was the best value on the board, and I still thought it would. I think they'll find a way to make the play-in at the minimum.
Yeah, I still think there's value there. Now, obviously, if they do get up to the 6th seed, you would lose that bet. But I do kind of like them minus 160.
I think it's going to be tough for them to get into the top 6 overall. To me, I mean, you got to think the chances of them winning the next 2, assuming they win tonight, winning one of 2 of the next 2 are going to be tough. They're less than 50-50. They're going to win one of the next 2. So then you kind of have to come home and sweep. It's going to be a tough thing to do.
Yep. All right, last topic of the day before we get to our rants. Lamar Jackson has said on his social media accounts that back on March the 2nd, he requested a trade or demanded a trade, whichever verb you might want to use, from the Baltimore Ravens, said they did not meet his asking price. The Ravens, of course, made him a non-exclusive franchise tag, which means that other teams can bid on him. This is all stuff we knew. But what's interesting about it now is like this social media post almost made it seem like Lamar Jackson saying goodbye to the Ravens. I mean, he said things like, I'll always be part of the Baltimore flock, and I enjoyed my time. But hey, it was almost like a goodbye post. And so it sounds to me, and we want y'all to tell us with our poll question, but it sounds to me, Jim, like he may be, if they don't trade him, if they don't find somebody who will give up 2 first-round picks for him, he'll just sit out.
Yeah. Is he willing to give up millions and millions of dollars to sit out for a season? That would be, look, if he does, then that's, I'd applaud him, honestly. I mean, if you're a man of principles to that extent and you decide to sit out, great. But I don't see him sitting out, and I don't see him going anywhere either. I mean, if you look at the odds to go elsewhere, I think he was plus 250 to go to Indy and plus 300 to go to Atlanta, and everything else was higher than that. So you're talking about, at best, 2-1 to play elsewhere. I think the Ravens, when all is said and done, they're going to find a way to make this happen, at least for this year, and get him in there. What happens after that, I think he's probably going to leave. I think he wants to leave. But I don't see someone like this. I mean, Bobby Hebert did it many, many, many years ago, threw away an entire season because he had a contract dispute, and then came back to the Saints after it was over. So we've seen this throughout time, and players get aggravated and they don't get what they want. But I think it would be a surprise at this point if Lamar Jackson plays anywhere other than Baltimore, and it would be an even bigger surprise if he doesn't play at all. But it's possible.
Yeah. The more recent example, not a quarterback, but would be Le'Veon Bell, sat out a year for the Steelers as their running back.
Basically
didn't get the contract he wanted. Yeah, and he was never. I mean, maybe he was on the decline anyway, and maybe he knew that, and so he was looking for the payday. I don't know, but we do want you to go vote. Go to bet.NOLA.com and vote on what you think will happen with Lamar Jackson next season. Does he stay with the Ravens? The two favorites, if you look in some of the odds available out there, the Colts and the Falcons. Does he go somewhere else? There's a bunch of other possibilities. Washington Commanders, New England Patriots. Lots of places could use Lamar Jackson.
Buccaneers.
Yeah, Tampa Bay. Or the fifth option, does he simply not play? Will he not accept the franchise tag, which I believe is $32 million for a quarterback next year? And so obviously he would be underpaid at that amount compared to what his peers are getting. I mean, the guy's a former MVP. Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins are getting $40 million a year or close to it. So Lamar Jackson would be taking 32. But at the same time, it's $32 million. I would do a lot of stuff for $32 million.
Yeah, $32 million. I probably wouldn't be on the show next Thursday. Someone would give me $32 million.
I mean, I would be on whatever show you told me to be on for $32 million.
Maybe. I might still come on more. But I'd be doing a happy dance on air.
That's right. So we want you to tell us now. We mentioned the Falcons as being one of the possibilities, and you can go vote for Lamar to the Falcons on bet.nola.com. Not that that's what you want, but what you think is going to happen.
Right. And
we'll show the results on Thursday's Bayou Bets. But my question for you, Jim, is should Saints fans be okay with Lamar Jackson in Atlanta? I mean, I think he would help them probably win next year. Maybe he shifts the balance of power. But if they give up 2 first-round picks for the guy and a bunch of their salary cap money, does that make them better long-term?
Yes, but take that with a grain of salt. I mean, of course it makes them better because they're atrocious at quarterback right now, and they need help there. I mean, but they need help in a lot of other places, to your point. But yes, I mean, I don't know that it would make them the favorite to win the NFC South, but because I still think the Saints would be better overall. The Saints have had trouble with Lamar Jackson in the past, so that's definitely been true. I think it would be an interesting scenario. I don't think the Falcons become Super Bowl contenders or anything like that, but it certainly makes them better, and it certainly makes their win total move up from 7.5.
Yeah, I think you'd see the Falcons up to 8.5, and maybe the Saints tick down to 9 because they're playing Atlanta twice.
I don't know the Saints number would tick down, although it is on the cusp right now.
It's already a minus 130 for the under, so I could see it ticking don a half a win if that happened. But what's interesting with these win totals, which Caesars published this week, and you can go to NOLA.com/Caesars, sign up for Caesars Sportsbook, and place your win total bets. All sorts of other NFL and NFL draft futures available too. But what's interesting about this is the Falcons actually slightly juiced to the over. It's minus 115 to bet over, where the Panthers are minus 110 each side. And yet, if you look at just straight division odds, the Panthers have a better chance of winning the division than the Falcons. So it's a little bit of a discrepancy there.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. To me, the best value in this division right now is Carolina. I don't necessarily think Carolina is the best team in the division, but I certainly don't think they're 3-1 worse than everyone else. So I like what Frank Reich is doing there. The Saints, there's no value at plus 120. There's no value in this win total. You can't, to me, I think 9 is about where I would put them right now. Let's see what happens during the draft. The number is not going to go down. So to me, the Panthers can only get better. They're the only value in here. They're the only team that I would bet on at the moment.
All right. So that is the story in the NFL offseason. Of course, lots to come in the next month. I think we're exactly a month away from the draft. I think it's 30 days from, maybe 31 days from that. It's April 27th. So yeah, exactly 1 month from now is the first round of the NFL draft. So lots to talk about with that. We'll also be following the Pelicans and the Final Four, the Masters, all that stuff, of course. But we've got some rants to get to, and then we're going to end the show. And Jim, we teased it a little bit, but you have some thoughts on March Madness.
Yeah, and I kind of said this in Datitude on Friday. And look, I know there are a lot of debates and back and forth of whether the NCAA should expand the football playoffs or not. And I've been vocal in saying that every year there's only 1 or 2 or 3 teams that can legitimately win the national championship in football. I still stand by that. But that being said, I know there are plenty of, if you expanded the playoffs to 32, which to me wouldn't be hard to do. People say, you could never do that. It would take too long. No, it wouldn't take too long. Get rid of some of these bowl games or incorporate the bowl games into doing this and start it. All you'd have to do is start it 3 weeks sooner. Or take a week off of the regular season if you want to and make it that way. But could you imagine holiday hysteria? And it starts, I don't know, the week before Christmas and lasts until it lasts now. And you had, you had 5 versus 12 and you had all these upsets. I mean, you'd still have the same kind of upsets in college football. Now, not at the end. It wouldn't be the same at the end. It wouldn't be like the Final Four is now. You wouldn't have a 9 seed playing a 5 seed and a 4 seed playing a 5 seed. That's not going to happen in football. However, leading up to the events to me would be just as fun as basketball. And I've been saying it for years. There is no reason, literally no reason, why college football shouldn't do this. It would make even more. It's all about money. You can't tell me they wouldn't make more money on having a tournament like this. I can't imagine what kind of ratings they'd get for the selection show alone. So to me, holiday hysteria would be just as much fun as March Madness. Very simple to do. I don't think we'll ever see it, not in my lifetime, but it sure would be fun.
Yeah, and we're going to see 12 teams here in a couple of years. And I think 16 is not too far a bridge from 12. I don't know about 32. What you start going down to 30 and 31 and 32, you're talking about some not very good teams, but it does give a chance for the Sun Belt winner, the MAC winner. I mean, you let them in and they get to go play Alabama, and Alabama's got to take care of Miami of Ohio in the first round. You never know, right?
They've all lost to LSU lost to UAB when they were really good a few years ago, about 20 years ago now. Alabama, I think, lost to Louisiana Monroe. Anything can happen on any given day. I can tell you, it would make things. Make some things clench just a little bit. A lot of clenching going on.
Oh, and just imagine the ratings if
exactly.
If Marshall takes a touchdown lead on Alabama midway through the third quarter or something, and I mean, all of a sudden everybody's on upset watch times 10. So it would be a lot of fun. I agree with that. Jerry's got a little mini rant here. The media gave the Saints a C+ in free agency. Are they crazy? Yeah. I think that was Pro Football Focus did that.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
I could see not giving them an A. It's a little bit of an incomplete right now, but a C+, they got the best free agent quarterback out there. I don't see how that's a C+.
With no money available. Anything less than a B or a B+ or a B, and you're just trying to get people to go read your post. I mean, that's clickbait. And I made a joke on Twitter that's saying, all the NFL people were busy that weekend, and hey, intern, You got anything on your plate right now? No, Mr. Jones. Okay, well, I need you to get in there and put together a grades list, and we want it to be back off a little bit, make the Saints suck, whatever. However you want to do it, make sure we get clicks on this. Okay, Mr. Jones, I'll give the Saints a C. Okay, well, go ahead. And there you go, and that's how that happens. Got clicked on, didn't it?
Mr. Jones and me. Yeah, I don't like. I just don't. I think there's some bitterness among NFL media, especially in other cities, of they want the Saints to take their medicine with the salary cap, and they thought it would happen after Drew Brees left, and it just hasn't happened. They've continued to kick the can down the road, and the Saints are able to do it because they have the cooperation of their players. The players don't have to restructure these contracts, but they cooperate because, number one, they're getting some signing bonus money deferred, and number two, they want to play for a winner. They don't want to sit in New Orleans and play for a 4-13 team, and so they're willing to do it. And there seems to just be this level of bitterness of, well, the Saints can't keep getting away with this, and they pound the table and say they get a C in free agency because they're in cap hell again next year. And it's like, well, yeah, they are, but they were in cap hell this year, and they signed the top available free agent quarterback. So how hellish is cap hell really?
I was supposed to have ham and cheese, and I got turkey and cheese.
The Saints, sometimes they rise to the occasion. Sometimes. We'll see
they,
what happens.
By the way, who's they? The Saints.
Yeah, I don't think they. I think there's just some bitterness about the whole salary cap thing. Nick Wright is a professional, a national radio host, and he's been leading the charge against them, saying, "Well, this is ridiculous. And how can they do this?" Well, they keep doing it, and I don't think you should criticize a team for trying to compete in professional sports. That's what you're supposed to try to do. So
does that get someone ratings when they do that? When they whine about stuff like that?
Apparently.
Okay.
Apparently, you've been known to whine a time or two.
Oh, I whine all the time.
I don't know if we get ratings from it, but my rant, Jim, is not a rant of whining today. It's a rant of excitement because baseball's opening day is on Thursday, and I was teasing all the stuff coming up, and I left this out. I got to say this, and I know people will say Super Bowl Sunday, and I know they'll say the first 2 days of March Madness, and they'll say the playoff semifinals in college football or opening day in the NFL, and believe me, Kentucky Derby. I mean, there's all sorts of different things you could say. There are arguments to be made for all of them. They're all fun. But baseball's opening day, by God, is just glorious. It is wall to wall. The first game, I think, is like Mets and Marlins at 12:15, and the last game is Mariners and Guardians at 9:15. And I mean, you say that, but you've got it's Shane Bieber against Luis Castillo, and then the noon game is Sandy Alcantara against Max Scherzer. So, they're going to be good games. You're going to flip on one game and it'll be snowing in Detroit, and you'll flip on another game and people will be sweating in LA. And there's just something about it. It means spring is here. All 30 teams think they can go 162-0 until reality hits on March 31st. But on March 30th, by God, they're going to be absolutely over the moon for baseball, and we all will. It should be a national holiday. Give us the day off. Let us watch baseball and drink beer all day. And that's all I have to say about that.
I probably feel a little differently than I used to. I used to love it. Probably, I don't know if I ever thought it was the best day on the sports calendar. It's up there because there's a lot of other things going on that day besides just baseball. It's usually during the Final Four, sometimes on the same day as a Final Four game. But this year, and I'm not going to poo-poo your rant because I respect your point of view. I can see why you would think that. This year is going to be extra interesting because of all these goofy-ass rules changes that we're going to see come into play with the pitch clock, no shift. Oh, and I can't wait. Bigger bases. How big are these bases going to be? Are they going to be like the size of a steak that I would eat, kind of big? Or they the size, just like a tinge bigger to where, yeah, you can't really tell they're bigger. I mean, how much bigger are they going to be? I haven't watched any spring training, by the way. Have they had the big bases in spring training? I don't know. I've missed it. Anyway, I'm looking forward to all that.
Yeah, and honestly, on TV, you can't really notice a difference.
Okay, well, I'm looking to see not just how much bigger the bases are, but what they actually do. Supposedly, it's going to make stealing bases more prevalent. I don't think it's going to do any of that. And we were talking about in pre-production about how Max Scherzer's already trying to skirt the system. I mean, he's going to, there's a new rule where you can only step out once per pitch, I guess. Not per bat, per pitch, right? So he's going to if somebody steps out, he's going to sit
per
there.
at bat, I think.
Oh, per at bat, okay. Well, whatever it is, he's going to stand there and let the pitch clock run out before he pitches when someone stands. I mean, come on. We're going to see all this kind of crap, and he's going to make a mockery. So I'm not a fan of a lot of these new rules. You and I have talked about that, but I guess I am interested to see if they have any impact on day one, and especially going forward. So I will be watching on an opening day, but it's certainly not, in my opinion, the greatest day on the sports calendar. Mine is a tie. I am a big fan of that second weekend of NFL playoffs, the Saturday and the Sunday combined. That's my favorite 2 days, kind of combined into a 24-hour stretch there, or 30-hour stretch. That's my favorite time of any sports moment, I guess you should say.
Yeah, fantastic. Also, but Thursday during the show, we're all going to be wearing our jerseys, so we'll be
I
in the
gotta wear
mood,
my
in the
jersey.
spirit.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to wear your
All
Cubs
right.
jersey.
Okay.
Zoe, I think will be. She's a White Sox fan, I think. So we're
Yeah,
going to
she
have both sides of
unfortunately.
Chicago. Let's have Spencer on his Cardinal stuff. I'll be in my Mariners gear. Are you more likely to vote on to bet on a Max Scherzer, Cy Young, or a Corey Seager? You know, one of the guys they say he hit into the shift the most last year of anybody for MVP. Would that change your thinking in the betting world at all?
Not at all. And I mean, Corey Seager is not going to be MVP, and Max Scherzer is 38 years old, and I can't
I
bet
think
on
he's
a
older
guy.
than that.
I can't bet on a guy who has two different eye colors. It just freaks me the hell out. He looks like this Australian Shepherd I used to have. He's too old to bet on. He's not going to make it through a season. We all know this, which is why I would never draft him in fantasy baseball, especially not as high as he's going. So no, none of these rules changes are going to affect what I might or might not bet. I want to see how. I mean, a lot of times you put these rules in, and people make a big noise about them, and then they have like little to no effect. So I think that's a possibility here. I don't think they're going to have that big of an effect. I think they were just things to talk about in the offseason. And, I mean, you have to enforce it with the shift, but I'm not sure. Remember when they tried to put the pitch clock in before and basically everyone ignored it? I mean, is that going to happen again? I don't know. We'll see. And I don't know if Zach is frozen up or not. He seems to be. But that is going to be the end of our show anyway. So I guess I get the chance to wrap it up here. And we thank you for joining us. We'll be back on Thursday with more to talk about. We'll be talking about the LSU women, obviously, and we'll probably have more football things to talk about. Who knows what will come up? Again, all wearing our favorite baseball jerseys. I was just told this. So I guess that's what we're going to do. We will see you on Thursday. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great week, everybody.